It's very difficult to be in a business where you could wake up one morning, everything is perfect the night before. You could wake up one morning and your entire business is shut down. You're going to run into a problem. Either a customer will complain about it, you'll get a cease and desist letter. It can even cause account suspensions. You can get sued. There's a lot of issues. It's not really a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If you're going to be in the Amazon reselling business, you have to make sure that you have legitimate suppliers, or that some way we can track them at least to an authorized distributor of some sort. Otherwise, you're on the hook, and if Amazon ever comes knocking, you're bound to have problems. So don't be cute, don't be tricky. Sometimes sellers want to do that because there's a better chance of it being, the sales being better, right? But don't do it. It's not worth it. Even if it sells well for a month or even several months, eventually you will get suspended. So I would avoid it. Looking at some of these major issues before they actually occur and understanding it, I think will put sellers in a much better place. And I think both of our companies together could help do that.
Hello and welcome to Seller Assistant Talks. My name is Oleg Kuzmenkov. I'm the founder of Seller Assistant. Seller Assistant is the best tool for online arbitrage and wholesale on Amazon. In this podcast, we dive in the world of selling on Amazon. We bring in niche experts, successful sellers, and our partners to share their knowledge with you. In this video, I'm happy to introduce you David Miller, who is licensed attorney in New York, and he helped 100 Amazon sellers to solve their issues with listing suspensions, account suspensions, brand protection, and intellectual property claims. He have a lot of information to share with you. If you're interested in it, hit the like button, subscribe the channel, and leave your comment. We will answer all the questions. Hi, David. How are you doing today?
Hi, Oleg. How are you?
I'm doing great. Actually, I'm happy to see you here in my podcast. We met recently in Orange Creek event in Lithuania, and now we met together again and speak about your business, about our partnership. It would be great if you share what is your business about, how you help Amazon sellers in their journey, and in which case they should contact you, and how it works.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. Yeah, we did meet in Vilnius, Lithuania at Orange Click Seller Fest Baltics. A little bit about us and what we do. So we're a law firm and we cater towards the needs of Amazon sellers. And what that entails are a slew of different issues. Most of the time it's related to Amazon suspensions. It's related to IP infringement issues. So when a seller receives a trademark, a copyright, or a patent complaint, or even a counterfeit one. We also assist with brand protection or brand enforcement. So private label sellers oftentimes have their own trademarks, their own copyright or patent registrations, and we help enforce those IP rights. And in addition to that, we also help with various business law related matters. So we've assisted sellers that were selling their entire Amazon businesses. We've represented sellers that have been purchasing Amazon businesses, in addition to other contract needs, authorization agreements, and things of that nature. So we're a heavily Amazon seller focused law firm. That's a little bit of a background on us and what we do.
Our business is focused on online arbitrage sellers and wholesalers, and sometimes they get IP complaints from brand owners selling their product, or account health issues, saying that they suspected in selling counterfeit products. So maybe you can share some tips to how to avoid that, and how to protect your account doing online arbitrage, reselling, wholesale on Amazon.
Sure. So it's a common problem on Amazon today where Amazon knocks on the door quite frequently. They ask for invoices, they'll ask for letters of authorization that many sellers don't have. So there's not a way necessarily to prevent, a brand owner or a company from sending out a cease and desist letter or trying to get you removed. But what you can do is make sure that you're aware of the laws to put yourself in the best possible position, that if Amazon ever flags the account, or if the brand ever contacts you directly, or if it's a law firm on behalf of the brand, how to counteract those sorts of accusations. So first off, you need to make sure that you have legitimate suppliers, right? If you're sourcing let's say it's a very well-known brand like Nike or Adidas, if you're buying them from Alibaba, it's not going to work. You're going to run into a problem. Either a customer will complain about it, you'll get a cease and desist letter. It can even cause account suspensions. You can get sued. There's a lot of issues. It's not really a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So the first step, make sure your suppliers are airtight. That doesn't always mean you necessarily have to buy directly from Nike or directly from Adidas. I'm a realist, so I know that's not always doable. It's not always possible, and a lot of times it's not profitable. But what you do have to make sure is that you have some sort of valid distribution chain. So if you can't buy from Nike or Adidas directly, see if you could source from an authorized distributor. That's not a guess of who could or might be authorized. Check their website. Usually a lot of these well-known brands will have a list of authorized dealers or resellers or distributors. See if you could source from one of them. If that's also not possible, try and target a vetted supplier, someone that, has been, in the industry for a while, who has positive feedback from sellers. That's more of a last resort because sometimes Amazon could flag it at any point and state that it's an unverifiable supplier. So look at their track record, see if you can connect the dots, see if maybe they can provide an authorization letter. If you're going to be in the Amazon reselling business, you have to make sure that you have legitimate suppliers or that some way we can track them at least to an authorized distributor of some sort. Otherwise, you're on the hook, and if Amazon ever comes knocking, you're bound to have a problem. So first off, suppliers, I don't think I'm saying anything that sellers don't already know. I just, I think it's harder. It's easier said than done. Let's put it that way. Number two is the listings that you join. When you join listings, sometimes sellers aren't careful. So back to our Nike or Adidas example, you need to make sure that that's the legitimate listing for the brand. Sometimes what will happen is someone will create a duplicate listing of the same exact product that Amazon flags. So it's not necessarily a supplier problem. It's a matter of how it was listed, and it can become a problem getting that listing or even account reinstated. So look out for when private labels, what they'll tend to do sometimes if they're trying to gain an advantage is they'll use their private label name in the listing. So they'll have David's brand and then they'll put Nike, somewhere at the bottom or in the description. And then what'll happen is they'll get a complaint from the private label brand, sometimes not even Nike themselves. So not only is that a potential infringement on Nike, you also can have a problem with the private label brand directly. So I'd say those are probably the two most common issues of things that you can try and avoid as a seller.
We have a great feature in our software, which shows you account health issues related to Amazon account, related to the certain product or brand. And we have a great database. We collect it on daily basis automatically. Nobody can file issues in our database. It's work automatically. And if you're interested to use software for that, try Seller Assistant or IP Alert by Seller Assistant on our website, link in the description. So speaking about listings, I know that we have a most common problem that called Amazon brand protection. When someone lists a product, for example, under his own brand, but in the description they put some information about different brand. For example, case for iPhone or iPhone compatible case, it's okay. But if you change the wording a little bit and write something like iPhone case or Apple case, you get this issue automatically. Do you know something like that about that?
Of course. So it's terminology is very important. So you're allowed to generally use terminology that shows that you're compatible with a well-known brand. So if you say it's compatible with an iPhone, generally that's not a problem. Where sellers get into trouble is when they kind of walk the tightrope and they don't really say it's compatible and it can sound like it's endorsed or sponsored by Apple directly. That's where sellers run into a problem. So if you just say it's for the iPhone, or you just say, if it can come across as as Apple sells it themselves, or it's an Apple product. And the terminology can vary. There's lots of gray area. You want to make it crystal clear. Amazon does have guidelines for what you should and recommendations actually for what you shouldn't use as well. I would just use exactly what Amazon recommends. I know compatible with generally isn't a problem, but sellers get into trouble sometimes when they don't make it clear exactly that it's their own private label, it's their branded product that just happens to work with an Apple product. So I think that's something to really keep in mind. The question you always want to ask yourself is, can a customer be confused about whose brand this is or what branded product? So don't be cute, don't be tricky. Sometimes sellers want to do that because there's a better chance of it being, the sales being better, right? Sales volume can increase if they think it's an actual Apple product, but don't do it. It's not worth it. Even if it sells well for a month or even several months, eventually you will get suspended. So I would avoid it.
What about sellers who just starting selling on Amazon and they buy products, branded products from deal sales, for example, or something like that? And how usually they have a receipt from offline store or maybe online receipt, and that's it. They have no any authorization letters, invoices. It looks like they buy product for themselves, not for reselling, so they have no any documents. How to solve that problems?
It's certainly harder than it's been. I mean, I've been in the Amazon space for a long time, and it used to be a lot easier. It's still doable. So I've recorded content about, is Amazon reselling dead? Is it even worth it at this point? Because so many sellers have problems with it. And this is an example of one of them, right? So they go to Costco, they go to Walmart, they'll go to a major retailer, Target, and they'll have receipts of the product. Now, there's a couple of things to look for. And again, this isn't always feasible. I'm talking more about in a perfect world. So you almost have to assume, okay, if Amazon flags me, will this be sufficient? Will my receipts or my invoices be enough that it will pass Amazon's test? Because at some point, Amazon will ask for them. Every product, you don't exactly know which product is going to be. So if your business model is as tightened up as possible, you'll at least be in a better position if you do ever have to reinstate those listings. So if you have a receipt from one of those major retailers, you want to make sure of a couple of things. One, you need to know that the quantity on the listing at least matches or exceeds the sales on Amazon. So if I buy an iPhone, for example, right, and I only have a Target receipt with 1 unit on it, but my Amazon store shows that I sold 10 of them, Amazon's going to ask what happened to the other 9. So that's very important. Number 2, when possible, you want to make sure that the description on the receipts themselves are itemized. So Amazon can identify what the product is. And if it doesn't have an actual description, some type of serial number or model number on the receipt that we can tie it back to the product itself. If it just says ABCD, and 1 unit was bought for $50, if we don't know what the product is, or it's at least difficult to connect the dots, Amazon probably won't reinstate the listing. So in the past, sometimes I've even had sellers that have went to the store and have taken pictures of the boxes to compare the numbers on the product to the receipt. So there are usually ways to tie it together. But in a perfect world, it has a description on the receipt, the quantity matches or exceeds your Amazon sales, and lastly, the date on that receipt is before the sale on Amazon. That's an important one. If you sold the product on January 1st, or a better example, if you purchased the product on January 1st and the Amazon sale was on December 31st, it's not going to work on Amazon because they know that wasn't the product that was purchased, or that's at least what they're going to suspect if you didn't ship the product out right away. So those are a couple of tips to look out for when it comes to when it comes to retail.
In case the seller just received such complaint from Amazon, what to do?
So when you receive a complaint from Amazon, there's a lot of different areas of this, right? So if Amazon flags you for inauthentic, right, usually what will happen is you'll get a notice. They will include what ASIN is in the notice, or sometimes it's several ASINs. Then what you need to do is appeal it directly through Amazon's channels. So usually account health is the first step. So you need to gather your documentation and provide what Amazon is asking for. Sometimes they ask for a plan of action, which includes three main components, which is the root cause, your corrective actions, which, how have you fixed this problem, and your preventative measures, how you're going to ensure this doesn't happen again, or at least do your best to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future. Sometimes they'll ask for that, and you have to prepare a strong plan of action that includes each of those components. Other times they won't. Other times they'll just ask for invoices. Send us copies of your invoices. Sometimes there'll be specific examples in there that they want you to provide. So they'll say, we want an invoice before January 1st of 2024. And if you don't have one, it can be a problem. So first, you need to make sure you understand the exact issue, and you need to make sure that you're providing what Amazon is asking for.
We just partnered with your company, so David Miller companies published on our website in the partners section. And David, how do you view our partnership, and how can we together can better support Amazon sellers in their business?
Right. So I think there's certainly a number of ways. I mean, what I love about Seller Assistant is that it's automated, right? So it helps with flagging certain issues that could become IP infringement issues. So I think, having an automated system coupled with a law firm that understands some of the legal issues, one, I think we could probably help make the system even better, the automated system. But no automated system is ever going to be perfect because there's a lot of gray area when it comes to the law. So I think one way would be if sellers used your platform or your software rather to help with those types of IP issues, or maybe just Amazon compliance in general. And if they're ever flagged, and they need a human to actually review and see what the issue is, or they need a second level, that's when they can use our firm. So I think there's certainly some synergy that both companies can work together to help with, the first step is really just preventing the IP issues. Unfortunately, in this space, at least I'm not sure about with your company directly, but with us, most sellers aren't contacting us until the issue already happened. Every once in a while, I would say under 10%, there are sellers that are asking questions before the issue comes up, whether it's a compliance issue or an intellectual property issue. But I would say probably 90% or higher, the issue already happened. So they'll call us when the account is already suspended, when they already have an IP violation. So I think looking at some of these major issues before they actually occur and understanding it, I think will put sellers in a much better place. And I think both of our companies together could help do that.
One more question. What do you notice in the field from your perspective? What sellers speak about? What's going on in selling on Amazon right now?
A lot of things. A lot of things are going on. But I would say to highlight maybe a couple of points. Firstly, a lot of sellers are really frustrated with Amazon's support system to sellers, so seller support. A lot of sellers have to deal with very tedious issues that should never even occur, but if they do, it should be pretty quick and easy to resolve it. So a lot of them are frustrated that Amazon treats buyers, impeccably well, but they fall very short when it comes to treating sellers. Right? When sellers didn't do anything wrong, Amazon makes them jump through hoops and hoops to be able to resolve issues that really should be very minor. So I think sellers really would like a more expedited process, a team that was competent, a seller support team that's competent to actually address issues, which they actually just released that they are going to be releasing this seller support beta program. I don't know if you heard about this. So I think it's a step in the right direction. But I'm not going to hold my breath, and I don't think most sellers will either, because we've heard of a number of different programs, different teams. Amazon promises a lot of things. They had account health assurance, which was supposed to at least help sellers that have had a proven track record to at least prevent from an immediate suspension. It's very difficult to be in a business where you could wake up one morning, everything is perfect the night before. You could wake up one morning and your entire business is shut down. That's just very hard to deal with, So if you're in the retail business, it's like someone walking into your store and saying, you cannot sell a single product We're going to give you very little information about how to resolve it, but we're not going to allow a single customer to walk in here until you resolve this issue. So, you can understand the fear and the paranoia sometimes and the frustration with Amazon sellers. So I would say that's, of course, huge. And in addition to that, I would say there's certainly been a shift over, this isn't new, but over the last several years now, where more and more sellers have already shifted over to private label business models just because of the unpredictable nature of just third-party reselling. So if you go to a retail store, we talked about problems with invoices and receipts and when a supplier is deemed unverifiable by Amazon. You don't really have that issue when you own the brand. You have a trademark registration, right? You don't need a letter of authorization because you are the brand owner yourself. Amazon will scrutinize your supplier way less because you're the one doing the branding, so you have a manufacturer, so it matters less. I'm not saying there's not problems with private label, of course, but it's certainly easier as far as not running into issues. Now, the other side of the coin is the failure rate for businesses is also a lot higher because you're starting your own brand. So that's why some sellers shy away from it. But as far as issues on Amazon, it's a lot easier to handle some of the common problems that arise on Amazon is through the private label model.
I know that a lot of sellers who do wholesaling on Amazon, they test some products and try to set up their own brand, but it's not easy.
Right.
And if you do reselling, your business is working, right? But if you try to set up your own brand, it's completely different business processes. You need a new team. You need to invest in your brand, collect reviews. It's completely different workflow. So this is why it's so hard to start your own brand if you sell a lot reselling products. And also I see a lot of people who try to start building their business doing online arbitrage, and they try to expand their business to wholesale. At this point, they have no resources to run their own brands. It's not easy, but it's possible. I know a lot of people who succeeded.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It's certainly not easy. I mean, when one thing is easier, then something else is more difficult, right? So I think the private label side, the failure rate is a lot higher. But once you get over that hump, it's easier to deal with Amazon on the Amazon side of things. Yeah. So certain things are easier, but other things are harder. So I'm speaking on the legal perspective and the Amazon compliance perspective. Once you get to that next level, private label sellers have less problems, generally speaking. Okay. So, of course, the businesses that don't survive, I don't hear about those as much. So it's a matter of perspective. But as far as I think the success rate is high for the resellers, or it's a lot higher than private label initially. But once they hit that next level, when they try and expand, a lot of times they run into a major Amazon problem. And sometimes that's their full business is Amazon. So if Amazon one day says, you're suspended, we're going to hold your money, we're going to lock up your inventory, a lot of businesses just can't survive that, unfortunately.
Okay, what is your latest biggest achievement so far? Maybe you have a interesting case you can share information about, without any personal information.
Sure. Well, there's been a number of them over the years, but one that comes to mind somewhat recently, within the last year or so, I would say, we had a very large Amazon seller. I think the company was in the top 1,000 probably. I don't remember the exact number, but very large seller. Dozens of employees. I don't remember the number of that either, but some of the numbers I do remember was the account was suspended. They had over $1 million in funds that were frozen. So in the same day, he was told his account was suspended. He is $1 million in funds, so that's already earned sales. $1 million in funds and over $4 million worth of inventory that was frozen. And I spoke to the owner or one of the owners, pretty regularly when this was happening because we were gearing up to go to arbitration and we were going through the appeals process, and we eventually had to contact Amazon's outside counsel to get them to take a look at this. He was already getting ready to start having to terminate employees, and at a certain point, he had no cash flow, so that the business was going to go under if we couldn't resolve this quickly. And luckily, we were able to identify the root cause of the problem. And it was a pretty serious issue that caused it. So it took some time for us to discover. We had to review the entire account, discover exactly what the problem was. Luckily, we were able to get to the bottom of it. And essentially, the problem was for less than 1% of the sales out of that, million that was locked up, or in the last year, less than 1% was what Amazon flagged the whole account for. So we reached out to Amazon's outside counsel, and luckily, in a very short period of time, we were able to reinstate the account. The $1 million in funds were released, and they unlocked his $4 million in inventory, and he's still in business today. They're doing great. They're thriving. It was a huge, huge success, because even if we had to go to arbitration, which I was confident we would win, it would take, it could take several months before it's resolved. So at that point, while obviously it's nice to get the inventory and the money back, I don't know if they would have recovered from that. So it's a really great team win. I was thrilled we were able to help that. It wasn't even just one individual. It was several owners and a whole team, a whole business, right? It would have been 50 plus people that would have lost jobs, and it was certainly stressful, but I was happy we came out on top on that case.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to discuss with you. Thank you to everyone who joined us. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. We will answer all the comments. Bye, David.
Thank you, Oleg. Thanks for having me.